Imagine willfully entering like a completely toxic relationship, a marriage where you know with absolute certainty before it even begins that you are going to be betrayed.
Right. It sounds totally irrational.
Yeah, why would anyone ever do that? Well, today we are diving into an ancient text where someone is commanded to do exactly that, just to prove a point.
It's the absolute definition of a visceral, lived-in metaphor.
Yeah.
You know, usually when we look at ancient historical documents, they feel, well, very safe.
Right, like they're categorized and put away.
Exactly. Compartmentalized in the past, sitting behind a layer of dusty museum glass. But this text, it shatters that glass entirely. There's no safe distance here.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking you into a story that rivals the most intense, emotionally complex, prestige TV drama you have ever binged. We are exploring the Book of Hosea.
It really is epic.
It is, and our mission today isn't just to, recite ancient history or walk through a table of contents. We are going to trace the deeply dramatic emotional flow of this narrative, moving from this bitter, shocking conflict all the way to a profound healing reconciliation. We're going to unpack the psychology behind its vivid symbolic language, look at the historical backdrop, all those shifting political alliances, and most importantly, extract the highly practical daily life lessons this ancient book offers you.
The stuff that actually applies to us right now.
Yes, exactly. Lessons about loyalty, the danger of a divided focus, and what true knowledge actually means. And we are jumping right in because the real-life metaphor that kicks off the story does not pull any punches.
Oh, it really doesn't. I mean, it sets a profoundly uncomfortable stage immediately.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The text opens by grounding us in a specific political era, mentioning kings like Uzziah and Jotham in the southern kingdom of Judah and Jeroboam in the northern kingdom of Israel. But before we get into the metaphor, what does that era actually look like?
Right, the context.
Yeah, like what is the vibe in the country when this story begins?
Well, what's fascinating here is the contrast between the surface and the reality. So during the reign of Jeroboam II, the nation of Israel was actually experiencing a massive economic boom.
Okay, so things were good.
On paper, yeah. It was a golden age of wealth and territorial expansion. And this is the big, but that wealth was incredibly concentrated.
Ah, got it.
You had this rising elite class that was essentially crushing the poor, manipulating the legal system, and engaging in rampant corruption. So outwardly, the nation's GDP was soaring, but inwardly, the moral infrastructure had completely rotted away.
Wow. Okay, so it's a society that looks successful on a spreadsheet but is deeply sick on the inside. And into that exact environment, God doesn't just send a prophet to give a speech.
No, that would be too easy.
Right. He gives the prophet Hosea this staggering command. Go take unto thee a wife of harlotry.
So Hosea goes and marries a woman named Gomer. It's one thing to use a spoken parable, but why make the prophet literally live this betrayal? That is the crucial question to ask, because it frames the entire text. This isn't just about a deity pointing out bad behavior from some distant pedestal.
Right.
It's about the deep, agonizing, intensely personal pain of infidelity. The text explicitly provides the why right there at the beginning. It says, "For the land doth commit great harlotry, departing from the Lord."
So the marriage is a mirror.
Exactly. By making Hosea live through this betrayal with Gomer, it completely shifts the listener's understanding of God. He's no longer a distant, angry rule-maker. He's a deeply grieved, betrayed spouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a shocking pedagogical tool designed to make a very comfortable, wealthy nation feel the actual emotional weight of their corruption.
And it gets even more intense. As Hosea and Gomer have children, I'm looking at the original names they give them, and they sound incredibly ominous.
Well, they are.
What do these translate to in the original Hebrew? Because I know that's important here.
They are devastating.
Yeah.
So the first son is named Jezreel, which translates to God will punish or God will scatter.
Yay.
Right. And it specifically references the blood of the house of Jehu. A century earlier, a guy named Jehu took the throne in a massive, hyper-violent coup, massacring the previous royal family.
Okay, so a lot of baggage there.
Tons of baggage. The nation's foundation was built on unchecked bloodshed, and the name Jezreel is a signal that the bill is finally coming due.
That is heavy. And the other children.
Then a daughter is born named Lo-Ruhamah, which literally means no compassion, because the text says God will no longer have compassion on the house of Israel.
Oh, man.
And finally another son, Lo-Ammi, meaning not my people.
I mean, just imagine calling your kids at the dinner table with those names. Hey, not my people, time to eat.
I know, it sounds absurd to
The
us.
psychological weight of that on a daily basis is wild.
But that was the point. Every single time those children were called out in the marketplace or the streets, it was a public, audible declaration of the broken relationship between the nation and their God.
A constant reminder.
Exactly. They were walking billboards of a broken covenant. It made the spiritual reality an unavoidable physical reality for everyone who heard them.
And the narrative makes sure we understand exactly what this betrayal looks like in practice, right? It gets very specific about the agricultural and economic context at the time.
Yes, chapter 2 gets really into the weeds on this.
Right. The text talks about how Gomer, who symbolizes the nation of Israel, is chasing after her lovers, thinking they are the ones providing for her. She says they give her corn, wine, oil, silver, and gold. But the text reveals she is taking the gifts of the true provider and crediting them to a false idol, specifically Baal.
And this brings up a really important aspect of human psychology. In an agrarian society, Baal was worshipped as the Canaanite storm god.
The bringer of rain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is human nature to credit the most immediate visible cause for our success. Baal was the immediate visible weather.
Oh, that makes sense.
They worshipped the immediate mechanism of the rain rather than the ultimate source that provided the land and the covenant in the first place.
Wow, we do the exact same thing today.
Oh, all the time.
We credit a lucky break or like our own brilliance for a massive success, completely ignoring the huge foundation of help we've received from mentors or family or just sheer fortunate circumstances. We worship the immediate mechanism.
Precisely. It's a profound blindness. And because of that blindness, the nation is spiraling.
Yeah.
Which makes the next major beat in the story so staggering.
Because Hosea doesn't just walk away.
No. After all this betrayal, after she has chased these false providers, Hosea is told to go love his wife again. He goes and literally buys her back.
Right. Chapter 3, he pays 15 pieces of silver and a homer and a half of barley to get her back.
Yeah.
And he tells her she must sit in solitude for many days and stop playing the harlot. It's this intensely dramatic purchase of someone who was already rightfully his. But why the barley? I thought barley had a specific connotation back then.
It did. Barley was often used as cheap animal fodder.
Okay, so not exactly a luxury good.
Not at all. Using it as part of the payment shows the absolute degradation of Gomer's situation. Her value in society had completely tanked. But more importantly, it shows the relentless pursuit of the betrayed party.
Wow.
Hosea paying to redeem his own wife is the physical embodiment of grace. He is paying a heavy cost that wasn't owed to rescue someone who objectively didn't deserve it.
But this personal domestic drama is actually just a microcosm, isn't it? As the narrative moves forward into chapters 4 through 10, it zooms out.
Yes, the lens gets much wider.
It shows that this personal betrayal is a mirror for a total societal collapse happening outside their front door. The text gives us a thesis statement for the whole crisis in chapter 4. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Such a famous line.
Yeah. The land is mourning because there's no truth, no mercy, and no knowledge of God. It's just swearing, lying, killing, and stealing. It even mentions that the priests feed on the sin of the people. How does that work?
Well, think about the terrifying mechanics of that system. The religious institutions, the very people who are supposed to be the moral compass of the nation, were actually profiting off the corruption.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Under the sacrificial system, the more the people sinned, the more sin offerings the priests got a portion of.
Oh, my goodness.
They literally had a vested economic interest in the moral decay of their own society. The internal spiritual betrayal had completely metastasized into external societal chaos.
And the symbolic language the text uses to describe this decay is just incredible. In chapter 7, it describes Ephraim, which is the poetic name used for the northern kingdom, as a cake not turned.
I love that metaphor so much.
Right. Cake not turned means it's half-baked. It is burnt to a crisp on one side and completely raw dough on the other. It has zero core integrity. It's ruined.
Completely useless.
And then it calls them a silly dove, without understanding, fluttering around. They call out to Egypt, then they fly off to Assyria to seek help from a king contentious. But let me push back on this for a second. If you are a small nation surrounded by massive, aggressive superpowers like Egypt and Assyria, isn't making alliances just smart foreign policy?
You would think so, right?
Yeah. Why is the text treating basic political survival tactics as adultery?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text isn't critiquing geopolitics in a vacuum. It's critiquing the spiritual reality behind those politics.
Okay, explain that.
Remember, Assyria was the brutal, hyper-violent superpower of the ancient world. Paying them off was essentially submitting to a mob protection racket.
Right, paying the bully so he doesn't hit you.
Exactly. The cake not turned and the silly dove are symbols of a completely divided heart. When a crisis hits, instead of looking inward to address the moral rot, that lack of truth, mercy, and knowledge we just talked about, they look outward for a quick fix. They try to buy security.
Ah, so they're putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. They think they have a political problem, but they actually have a heart problem.
Exactly. And that is a massive, highly practical lesson for you listening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we do this all the time.
Oh, definitely.
Think about how often we fall into the trap of seeking false securities. We try to fix a deep internal void or a systemic issue in our lives with superficial alliances, quick fixes, or external validation.
We want the easy way out.
Right. We avoid doing the hard, quiet work of addressing our core lack of integrity in our daily habits. The text is essentially warning us about what I like to call the metrics trap.
A metrics trap. What's that?
Yes. We substitute things we can measure, like our bank accounts, our professional networks, or our personal foreign policy alliances, for the things that actually sustain us, like core integrity and empathy.
Wow.
You cannot outsource your moral center to external achievements. And Chapter 8 warns about the absolute law of consequence for this. It says, they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind.
Sow the wind, reap the whirlwind. It's such a famous line, but understanding the context makes it terrifying. You plant nothing of substance. You harvest uncontrollable destruction. So they're sowing wind, they're half-baked, they're running to the Assyrian mob for protection. As a reader, you'd expect the next beat of the story to just be pure, unadulterated smiting.
That's what human logic would dictate, 100%.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. In chapters 11 through 13, the narrative completely pivots. It shifts from outlining the mechanics of the betrayal to the raw, dramatic inner conflict of the betrayed party. Of God.
The emotional climax.
Yes. And it opens with this incredible tenderness in chapter 11. It says, when Israel was a child, then I loved him. I taught Ephraim to walk, taking them by their arms. It says, he drew them with cords of a man, with bands of love.
It is arguably one of the most poignant descriptions of parental love in all of ancient literature. The narrative expands from the betrayed husband metaphor to the agonizing parent.
It sounds exactly like a parent agonizing over a destructive teenager. You can feel the tension snapping. The text cries out, how shall I give thee up, Ephraim? How shall I surrender thee, Israel? My heart is turned within me. My compassions are kindled together.
It's an intense emotional crisis.
On one hand, justice demands they reap the whirlwind they sowed. And we definitely see that violent side of the coin in chapter 13, where the imagery gets incredibly ferocious. God says, because they forgot him, he will be to them like a lion, a leopard, and a bear that is bereaved of her whelps.
Yeah, the text certainly does not shy away from the horrific consequences of breaking the covenant. But that specific image of the bear bereaved of her whelps, a mother bear robbed of her cubs, is fascinating.
How so?
That is an image of pure, unstoppable, fiercely protective grief turned to violence. It's not cold, calculated anger. It's the volatile rage of a broken bond.
It's deeply personal.
Highly personal. But the profound theological and emotional shift happens in that moment of inner conflict back in chapter 11. Despite the demands of pure retributive justice, the ultimate resolution to this divine crisis is spoken. I will not execute the fierceness of mine anger. I will not return to destroy Ephraim, for I am God and not man.
For I am God and not man. That is such a heavy line. What is the mechanism behind that decision?
It changes everything about how we view justice and mercy. Think about human nature. When we are pushed to this level of betrayal, when we are cheated on and abandoned, human nature demands complete retribution.
Oh, absolutely. We want revenge.
We want to burn the bridge and salt the earth. We demand our pound of flesh. But the text explicitly states that divine nature operates differently. The emotional flow of this book dictates that unconditional love, not just blind, retributive justice, will have the final word.
Which perfectly sets up the resolution of this entire dramatic arc in the final chapters. We go from the shocking toxic marriage through the inner anguish to a beautiful healing reconciliation.
A whole full circle.
And the story starts this healing with a brilliant linguistic reversal of the very curses we saw at the beginning. Remember those terrible names for the children?
Right, the walking billboards.
The text plays with the Hebrew to completely flip them in chapter 2. What happens to Lo-Ami and Lo-Ruhamah?
The transformation is beautiful. Lo-Ami, which meant not my people, drops the negative lo and simply becomes Ami, my people.
I love that.
And lo ruhama, no compassion, becomes ruhama, compassion. The very walking billboards of brokenness become the living proof of restoration.
And there is a fundamental shift in the relationship dynamic, too. The text says the nation will no longer call God Bali, but will call him Ishi. What is the difference between those two words?
Oh, that specific linguistic shift from Bali to Ishi is breathtaking when you understand the cultural context. Bali translates to my master.
Okay.
It implies a relationship based on fear, dominance, and transaction, which is exactly how the surrounding Canaanite nations viewed their interactions with Balaam. You pay the god a sacrifice, the god gives you rain. It's a business deal.
Right, transactional.
But Ishi translates to my husband. It is the movement from a transactional fear to a relationship based on intimacy, equality, and faithful love.
So what does this all mean for us today? The roadmap for getting to that intimacy is laid out clearly in the text. It gives us the core lesson of the entire book in chapter 6. For I desire mercy and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings.
Becky verse.
How does a modern listener, who obviously isn't dragging a literal bull to a stone altar, apply this concept of mercy, not sacrifice, to their everyday life and relationships?
This goes right back to the metrics trap we discussed earlier.
Huh?
The text demands internal transformation over outward performance. A sacrifice or a burnt offering is incredibly easy to fake.
Yeah, anyone can go through the motions.
Right. It's a visible external ritual. You can check the box and say, look, I did the thing. In our modern daily life, a sacrifice might look like offering a superficial scripted apology without actually changing the toxic behavior.
Oh, wow.
Or it might look like performing good deeds publicly so your coworkers or family think well of you, while internally you harbor resentment or completely ignore the people who actually need your presence.
So it's basically doing the bare minimum to look the part of a good person, a good partner, or a good employee.
Exactly. It's playing a role. But the text says, no, I want mercy. I want the knowledge of God. And remember, in the biblical sense, knowledge isn't just intellectual data memorized for a trivia test. It's an experiential, lived relationship.
It's intimacy.
Yes. To apply this practically today means giving up the outward performances. It means stopping the superficial apologies and instead cultivating genuine understanding, steadfast loyalty, and deep, empathetic mercy toward others. It's about checking your own heart to see if you are a cake not turned, half-baked and divided, or if you are entirely internally committed.
That is a massive paradigm shift. And when that shift happens, when that internal commitment is made, the concluding imagery of chapter 14 is just stunning.
It's so poetic.
It issues a very simple invitation. Take with you words and return unto the Lord. Not expensive sacrifices, not grand geopolitical gestures, just words, just honest, vulnerable communication.
Just tell the truth.
Exactly. And God promises to heal their backsliding. The text says he will be like the dew to Israel, allowing them to blossom as the lily and cast forth roots like the cedars of Lebanon. They finally look around and say, what have I to do anymore with idols? The healing is complete.
The progression of the narrative is a structural masterpiece. We move from the dry, desolate wilderness of a toxic marriage into the violent, destructive whirlwind of societal collapse, and finally end in the lush, blooming, fragrant garden of reconciliation. It's a complete narrative of restoration that hinges entirely on internal change.
It really is an epic journey. We started with the shocking, deeply uncomfortable command for a prophet to marry a woman who would repeatedly break his heart, just to show a wealthy, corrupt nation their own reflection.
A hard lesson.
Very. We watched a society act like a half-baked cake and a silly dove, seeking security and political band-aids everywhere except where it actually mattered. We felt the agonizing parental love of a God whose compassions were kindled together, choosing unconditional love over human retributive justice. And we finally reached the blooming olive tree, where true knowledge and mercy replace empty, performative rituals.
It is a text that, despite being thousands of years old, forces us to look squarely in the mirror and evaluate the mechanics of our own lives.
It absolutely does, and we want to leave you with a final thought drawn directly from the very last verse of this text. The narrative closes in chapter 14 by asking a question directly to the reader. It says, "Whoso is wise, let him understand these things. Whoso is prudent, let him know them. For the ways of the Lord are right, and the just do walk in them, but transgressors do stumble therein."
A powerful ending.
So we challenge you to consider what paths you are walking in your own life right now. When you face a crisis, are you acting like the silly dove, fluttering from one quick fix to the next, relying on your own modern, serious, and easy escapes?
Good question.
Are you caught in the metrics trap? Offering superficial sacrifices to look good on paper? Or are you walking in the deeper knowledge and genuine, hard-won mercy that this ancient text calls for? Think about that the next time you find yourself trying to apply a superficial band-aid to something that actually requires a total change of heart. Because the book of Hosea refuses to stay safely behind museum glass. It steps right into your daily life and demands to know if your heart is truly in it. Mull that over until our next deep dive.